Welcome everybody to the 6.5 Summit. We are so excited to have you here today. My name is Daniel Newman. I'm the founding partner and principal analyst at Future and Research, and I will be your co-host.
And I'm Patrick Moorhead, founder, president, and principal analyst at More Insights and Strategy, and I'm your other co-host. I am super excited, Daniel, about this jam-packed agenda that we have.
Yeah, we're going to start off with a warm welcome and introduction from none other than Michael Dell.
And then we're going to have a one-on-one with AMD President and CEO Lisa Su to talk about digital transformation and innovation in the enterprise.
Yeah, and then it's going to come back over to me for a conversation that I'm going to have with Doug Merritt, the CEO of Splunk. And we're going to talk about data and the role it's going to have on our future.
Then we're going to get back together again, do a wrap for day one, and then talk about the remainder of the 6.5 Summit and the agenda.
So without further ado, let's send it over to Michael Dell.
Hi, everyone. I'm honored to kick off this year's inaugural 6.5 Summit. 2020 has already brought a whirlwind of unexpected events and one of the most rapid transformations in business that we've ever seen. The detrimental impact of the global pandemic on the economy and jobs has been heart-wrenching. But there's another story about the incredible number of businesses that have been able to stay up and running because of technology. We found new ways to gather, to meet, and to conduct business in a world that is seemingly digitally transformed overnight. What would have taken months or decades is now happening all at once. This is an enormous opportunity for the tech industry to step up and take an even greater leadership role to support our collective future. From next wave technologies like 5G and AI to important discussions on healthcare, diversity, and sustainability, we are positioned to lead the charge, to be a catalyst for a better world where technology keeps us more secure, more connected, and more informed. The world is not going to slow down. These last few months have accelerated us to a future where technology is the backbone of the new normal. The 6.5 Summit focuses not just on the products and services of the tech industry, but also on the vision of technology and how we can harness its power to help businesses be more successful and to make the world a better place. Dan and Pat, I'll turn it back over to you.
I have to say, I always love to hear from Michael Dell.
Yeah, it's just terrific to get someone with so much experience to share their perspective during these times we're in.
Well, and speaking of experience, our next speaker up is AMD CEO Lisa Su.
Yeah, I have to say, when I heard Lisa was joining us at the 6.5 Summit, I was thrilled.
It's been incredible to watch the revitalization of AMD since Lisa took the helm. So let's run over and watch my interview with Lisa Su.
Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the 6.5 Summit and helping us officially open the show. I really do appreciate you joining us today.
Hey, Pat, it's great to be here with you. I'm really happy that you and Daniel are having this and really looking forward to it.
Thanks. And I know it'd probably be better to do this face to face, but we all know what's going on and that's just not a possibility. So let's dive in. So digital transformation, I love this buzzword. It's been here for about 5 years. I'm curious, you have a lot of interaction with enterprise customers and partners. What are you hearing from them right now?
Pat, I think none of us would have expected that 2020 is what it is. And, the fact that, we have had, this unprecedented time and everything going on. I will say that it's really been really interesting as we spend time with customers and partners. What you find is people are really now understanding how core digital transformation is to the business. It is essential to everything that we do. And it gives you a real appreciation of the technology that we're working on and what we can do with it. And whether it's work from home or schooling from home, or it's, how do you connect? I mean, frankly, I connect with more customers now than I did, last year, just because I've cut out all that travel. And, it's become acceptable for us to do, video chats and conversations. So I think the fact is digital transformation is here to stay. I mean, the pandemic will come and go, but the abilities that we have, the efficiencies that we gain, the capabilities that brought in are what makes it so important to everyone, really.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's really on three sides. You have the manufacturers making rapid changes, hardware, software, and services. You have the customers, the end users who had to get used to this as well. And then you had IT and the businesses all having to move at the same time. It's been incredible. So I think we all have personal examples. We talked a little bit about this before of how to pivot from working, learning, and I like to add governing from home has caused huge shifts in behavior. Not all of them easy. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on those that are fleeting, let's say in the here and now, and those that stick after, let's say, we found a vaccine and people are comfortable and safe to go out? What is the new normal?
Yeah, so look, I've been incredibly impressed at what, frankly, all of us have been able to do. I mean, if I just take, AMD, for example, we have about, 12,000 people, and we pivoted, like many of our, tech peers, to work from home for about 90+% of our workforce in, like a minute. And, the fact is, the products are still getting built, and we're making tremendous progress on the roadmap. We're spending a lot of time with customers. We're spending a lot of time with partners, and I think that's true for a lot of tech. We've really been able to move very, very quickly to let's call it the current normal. Now, that being said, Pat, I'm a big fan of in-person activities. I like seeing people. I like spending time with people. I think there is a desire, for us to return to more of a balance. So yeah, we may not travel as much as we did in the past, but I'd love to see you in person. And we're probably like whatever 5 miles away from each other, but we're doing it on video. And I think what it has put a premium on is the relationships and trust that you have built, over time. Because, in this sense, we are all truly in it together. I mean, I can't tell you, how many new relationships as CEOs that we've built. There are lots of opportunities for us to get together, whether it's on Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams or WebEx. But there's a lot of opportunities for us to come together and really, solve some of the larger, systemic issues. And so, one of the things that I like to think about is the better normal. So, we keep talking about the new normal. Let's talk about the better normal, which has perhaps, a little bit more balance than we had, a year ago.
I 100% agree with the assessment. And it's funny, early on, I really was thinking personally that this new normal meant we're just not going to be getting on airplanes. Then over time, the amount of time not actually seeing people face to face and the strain on relationships, either building them or improving them, reality hit. And I agree with you. I think there's going to be just more flexibility here, a little bit more of a blend. If you look at governments who really never govern from home, that's the biggest difference. I think more employees will get choices, but I appreciate those comments. So I'd like to shift to high performance computing. Really been in the limelight lately, if nothing else, for scientific and medical reasons, either looking for a cure or helping people get better. But high performance computing is more than just for medical research. It's really very valuable to CIOs as well. Many of those who are on this call today, can you talk a little bit about the applicability of high performance computing for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, high performance computing is, sort of our mantra at AMD. It's all about how do we push the envelope of what computing can do for you. And at the very, very high end, it is these supercomputers that are being used to help with COVID-19 research or a whole bunch of other things. But when you take the technology that you develop for high performance computing, that's high performance processors and the interconnects and all of that stuff, what you're able to do is really address a whole number of workloads. And again, from the very complex simulation based workloads, whether it's for finance or for research, to now and Pat, I know you and I have talked about this a lot. This whole hybrid world that's existing. So the idea that many businesses will have both their on-prem computing as well as what they can do, in the cloud, and the cloud variety that you have now, that's optimized for different workloads, allows you to do a whole bunch of different things. So I think the main point is one would be surprised at how much computing has changed and how much we can do now. I can tell you, even in our own case, we were very much an on-prem type company. Thinking that, hey, when we're doing our products, we want to do everything in-house. But the cloud environment has proven to be very, very flexible for us and for many of our customers.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I'm sure you've seen this over the last 30 years. It always seems this, we're looking for the killer app, and then we find it, and then we question the value of hardware. And we hit things like machine learning and big data analytics. I haven't heard anybody ask why I need all this performance for about 5 years. And I think that's great for the industry, but I think it's great for enterprise outcomes as well, because we're just smarter. And it's not just the highest end elite enterprises, it's everybody. It's been democratized. And I have to give you a lot of kudos, Lisa, for democratizing for so many people high performance computing.
Well, I appreciate that, Pat. I think we've all done a big part in it. But the most interesting thing, I think, to your point, is not only are people saying, what am I, they're not asking, what are you going to use performance for? They're actually saying, I need more. And it's, you mentioned, machine learning and big data analytics. I think, the feeling is we're still at the very infancy of what we can do, with those technologies, and we're all learning, in the process.
Yeah, there's just going to be a ton of opportunity for everybody out there. And speaking about the future, let's pivot to the future here as a second. As the CEO of a major semiconductor company, you have to make bets on a 3 to 5, actually architecturally probably on a 7-year basis. But you're also filling fabs, which have these massive capital expenditures with your partners. What advice would you give to IT leaders about navigating the uncertainty of our current situation?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, all of us have thought, a lot about, short term versus long term. I will say, though, fundamentally for all of us in tech, and specifically, when you're thinking about, what you're trying to accomplish over the next, 3 to 5 years, we must think at the foundational level, fundamental level of what do you need, what problems are you trying to solve, how do we affect those, with our partners. Like for us, it's about, how do we really stay above the performance curve so that, we're giving people more performance per dollar with each generation. And those are things that, are not temporal. You don't optimize over the next month or two. You really make decisions on, hey, what's the next node process technology? What's the next node architecture? Who are the partners that you want to partner with and develop a long-term roadmap? I think those things are really key. And the fact is, the closer we work together, in different disciplines, so silicon, systems, software, and user, the better we're going to be able to affect those outcomes. And so I'm a big fan of deep partnerships, talking about, hey, what problems are you trying to solve? If you're in the financial industry, or if you're, trying to solve a difficult technical problem, and we can think about how we can help you solve those with innovations in silicon and systems.
I think those are very sage words of advice, Lisa. And I think with an incremental level of credibility, as I've watched you lead AMD over the past few years, and super impressed. I mean, you've been on a meteoric rise on all fronts. And with that said, what advice would you give other leaders of companies looking to drive the highest degree of excellence from their organizations or large teams?
Well, Pat, first of all, thank you for those kind words. Those are very nice. But what I would say is it really is about a journey. We've been on a journey for the last 5 years. We're looking at our next journey for the next 5 years. It is about consistency in what we say to our customers and what we commit and what we deliver. And then it's about having a great team, right? A team that really is extraordinarily ambitious in what you're trying to accomplish, but we're able to operationalize it. And that's sort of how I view it, right? As we build these relationships with some of the largest IT providers in the world, it is about bringing consistency and bringing our best game every single day.
I've been following AMD for 30 years. I've interacted a lot with, I think, 4 CEOs at AMD. And Lisa, what I'm really struck by has been the consistency of your strategy. If I go back many years ago to your financial analyst day, and I look at what your objectives were and what you wanted to do and your strategy of how you wanted to do it, it's remarkably consistent. And sure, you made a few tactical pivots along the way, which is just a smart business, but there's a lot of value to that, of getting your team aligned. Your partners trust you more because you do exactly what you say you're going to do. And I think finally, what I really appreciated, because in my heart, I'm a product person too, is let's deliver great products.
Oh, that's absolutely right. We wake up every day thinking about that, Pat. And like I said, we're very lucky that we're in this market that is just tremendously exciting, and sort of the core of what we need to do with digital transformation.
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I hear people say software is eating the world, I don't correct them, but I say, well, actually, hardware is eating the world too.
You still need hardware, all right? As
Exactly.
important as software is, you still need hardware. So
exactly. So with that, Lisa, we're coming up on time, but I just want to thank you so much for making the 6.5 Summit even better. And next year, we'd love to have you on. But for now, this is Pat Moorhead from More Insights and Strategy, signing off with Lisa Su, President and CEO of AMD.
thank you so much, Pat. Great to be here.
Wow, what a great discussion. Lisa Su and her team at AMD aren't only focused on products and services from AMD themselves, but really focused on driving innovation that's going to impact the future and the way we work.
Yeah, I totally agree, Daniel. And hearing how Lisa enabled digital transformation and innovation in new ways for the enterprise, I thought was really compelling.
Absolutely. So let's pivot over to our final segment.
Let's do it.
Next up, I'm thrilled to be joined by Doug Merritt, President and CEO of Splunk. Doug Merritt, welcome to the 6.5 Summit. How are you doing today?
Good, Daniel. How are you?
I'm doing great, Doug. I'm sitting in my studio and I'm at home. I did actually travel recently for the first time in 4 months, but you look like you are traveling, because I've done this with you a few times in the past and I've seen what your office looks like, and that does not look like your office. So where are you?
We got bold as a family, and a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, came down to Cabo San Lucas in Mexico.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful down here. It's beautiful down here, and it's they take COVID seriously. So masks, the hand sanitizer, temperature checks. It's a good, effective environment.
Yeah, I think getting anywhere you want to go is probably the riskiest part. If you can get somewhere, because you can kind of quarantine anywhere. So if you as a family are able to follow all the restrictions, I don't see any reason that that's really a big problem. But I really appreciate you taking the time. obviously, we love having you as part of our keynote general session here at our very first 6.5 Summit, Doug. I've had the pleasure of talking to you a few times. You look a little more relaxed. I don't think there's any way you can't be, but I know you well enough to know there's no way that you are not working, even though you are in Cabo San Lucas.
Yeah, it's a weird paradox because I'm up at 7 and on video conferences, usually until 5 or 6 p.m. while the family is having an awesome time, and I get to look out the window and watch the fun. But it's better to be on video conferences in Cabo than it is just about anywhere else. So.
Absolutely. Well, again, really excited to have you here. As an analyst, I've had the chance to really enjoy learning a lot about the journey of Splunk. But for our audience here, I kind of want to start in the beginning a little bit. In this session, we want to talk about the future of work. We want to talk about building culture and stability and data and leadership. But I think for a CEO to really be able to share those points, it's always great to go back a little bit to the beginning. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your run at Splunk so far, and just a little bit about how the company has changed since you joined.
It's been a really, obviously, a fantastic journey that I'm just so thrilled to be on. I've been with Splunk for almost 6.5 years, and it has changed dramatically, and it hasn't changed in some ways too, which is kind of a cool paradox. When I came on board, we had just finished a little bit over $300 million in revenue. And last year we closed at 2.4 billion. We were under 1,000 employees. We're over 6,000 now. We're now we have sales in over 100 countries, so a much bigger company. But what I like about Splunk is the core of the culture and the attitude and the orientation still, to me, feels very, very similar. The way it was described during my interview cycle was, we are a builder, doer culture, kind of blue collar. We roll up our sleeves. We are so excited to get stuff done. We'd rather undercommit and overdeliver. Low politics. People are honest and forthright, and I believe that's still the case with Splunk. And I think that culture has been one of the foundations that has enabled this ridiculous amount of growth and huge product expansion and massive business transformation to actually happen, and still it happened well, and still I retain our identity and a lot of our camaraderie and closeness.
Yeah, it's interesting you point all that out. I've been to your offices, I've spent some time, and I'll say the company never feels as big as it is, which I always think is an indicator of a warm culture. And we work with a lot of great companies, and so the feeling when I've been on campus, and obviously that's been a while now for even you, was always very, very much that way. And I always enjoyed all the snacks, by the way, the top floor with the beer and just the great end of day snacks in the game room. That's very San Francisco, very Valley-ish, but I can see what you meant. But I also, just while you're talking about change, you also, elicited a lot of meaningful change. Even recently, though, you mentioned the business model changes. You mentioned the way people consume. Open source, going from being more proprietary to open source. Can you just touch on that a little bit? Because I think those have been sweeping changes and have really been more like the last 1 or 2 years. Those have become really out in the front.
Yeah, we started this whole series of changes. It actually was part of my interview cycle as a CEO, which was almost exactly 5 years ago. So the idea of where we were, where we needed to go, I think has been pretty clear for a while. And we have stayed pretty consistent on what change was necessary also, but it is a high volume. We've moved from really a singular product that was on-prem, stateful and vertical scale out, our indexing and searching capability, to a cloud-based portfolio of products with a much more clear platform set of portfolios that complement indexing with stream processing, with orchestration, automation, collaboration, heavy emphasis on machine learning, whole new consumption paradigms from virtual reality to augmented reality to mobile connected experiences, continued development with our solutions around security, IT, app dev. But that expansion hasn't just been an expansion on the technical front and getting us to a cloud footprint, but that comes with a whole business model shift. We've gone from upfront revenue to ratable revenue, and through that, have had to completely change our go-to-market motions, our pricing, and the way that we actually convey value to customers, from data volume-based to infrastructure and value-based. So an amazing amount of change, more change than I could have conceived would be able to actually keep focused and execute through. And it's one of the things I'm so proud of our amazing employee and board and customer population to go through and to support.
Yeah, there must be a lot of great advisory, Doug. I think I was looking the other day on Yahoo Finance, and the market cap of the company was north of 30 billion. And for a company that you often have to tell people, or they go, "What is Splunk?" or "Who are Splunk?" or it's like you realize this is a company that's now as large as some of the biggest tech companies in the world. And so you should be really proud of those results. And it's really been at sort of the in a response to data's rapid proliferation. I said data has kind of become the North Star for business. And Splunk, you find yourself as an organization at the center of this discussion. So, I'd love to hear from you. How has the use of data changed the way that you lead and that you build the business at Splunk?
Yeah, it's a great question, and things like market cap are interesting because you're never as good as the market cap says. You're never as bad, right? They go up and down. They're out of your control. But the fundamentals of what we do, that is important. That's lasting, and we have been at the forefront of the big data movement back before people even knew to call it big data, and I think we continue. One of the things I'm really proud of with Splunk, before getting into how we use data and the thoughts around data, is our willingness to push the boundaries beyond what we are comfortable with and already know. Going back to indexing was really, really important in search. Being able to lean forward with stream-based processing, streaming machine learning, integrating a whole host of open source componentry, from Kafka to Pulsar to Flink to Spark to Kubernetes. That willingness to look outside through a customer lens and try and really stay close to what are the important use cases and value that a customer looks for, and then come back to, now what do we have to do to get that done? And the usual response would be double down on what you know and do so well. And while we continue to, I think, double down and improve the kernel of what Splunk was, we also have been very open to expanding across that data landscape. So whether it's data in motion, data at rest, data stored in other systems, or a whole host of different algorithmic capability to drive higher value through the platform or through the solutions. Data from our customers, data from the industry has been our primary focus to make sure that we're progressing the fundamentals of the company in the right direction.
Yeah, and what we've been through in 2020, which in January, there were some fires, and we thought that would be the hallmark of our year. And boy, did that not end up being the biggest moment. But the pandemic, and you can't really have a conversation and not talk about it. It's still, in parts of the world, including here in the US, a really big topic that doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. But your story, I had the chance to talk to you about this, serves as a really great example of using data to drive and inform your own decisions. Because if I recall, you basically had about a 2 or 3 day window at most to decide how you were going to run your business when the San Francisco in that whole area kind of came to a grinding halt.
I think we reacted pretty quickly in the Northern California shutdown, the California shutdown. But we've got such a talented group of folks across Splunk, and our facilities and risk management and government affairs teams have been hard at work from the end of December to early January, given our footprint in China, in Japan, in Australia, and Singapore and Korea, working with the pandemic and trying to get a view of what was happening with the pandemic. And we'd had to shut down many of our Asian offices before we even had an inkling that was going to happen in America. So the willingness to turn to data, see what was the data saying across Asia on what was appropriate for the safety of our employees, and what were the governmental policies, and how do we very rapidly understand the location of all the employees and the health of all the employees. We'd had a few iterations and practice sessions that when it came to a bigger chunk of our employee population, 50-ish% in the US, we were able to act very quickly. It still was a lot of heroics across the entire spectrum, HR, facilities, the IT team. While we've all been able to work just about anywhere, making sure that everybody works now remotely, like for every other company, the ability to spin up VPNs on a massive basis, to expand our cloud footprint and our apps footprint was a really fascinating thing to watch the IT team actually turn to Splunk so quickly and actually develop a set of solutions that now many customers are using to help accelerate remote work, all the way down to being able to ping and understand the quality of Teams or Zoom or WebEx sessions, as well as the health of VPN, and on both the security basis and an overall resiliency basis. So data definitely helped us a lot in going through the iterations, being crisp in decision making. And it's still what we're turning to in every single office around the world to try and guide ourselves on what is the right set of decisions and protocols in a really, really dynamic situation.
Yeah, and I bet when we look back in history on this, we're going to see a big differentiation in companies that acted and responded with data and companies that didn't in terms of the outcomes. And it's early days, because as much as we like to think we're seeing the outcomes, we're still in the very beginning. It could be, this hasn't died down yet. So we could have another 6 quarters, 8 quarters, maybe even more, where this is still going to have a very lasting and material impact on business. So you mentioned a couple of things that actually kind of takes me where I wanted to go, though, because you kind of talked about, I mentioned San Francisco and California, but you're a very global company, like most of the companies involved here in the 6.5 Summit. And so while even your ability to react and respond to a market, the data had to enable you to react and respond to many markets and make decisions for a company about how to continue to act local and think global. I'm hearing more and more about some return to work in other parts of the world where this virus has subsided more successfully than it has here, which means new sets of data, new sets of decisions. And culture, which is kind of where we started, is a driving force. It's going to be a driving force in your business's success. And of course, going remote, the team all got together, made it work, has continued to sell and grow and hit numbers and drive that market cap that's either too good or not good enough. But now you got to think about culture, because a lot of the power that built you to where you were, for a short period of time, people can react and live in uncomfortable and different environments. But what ends up happening is over time, it can have a drag coefficient on your business and your operations. And so whether you bring people back at some point and in different geographies are just one example of this, but you've got to be making some key decisions about how to change the culture to sustain whatever the artifacts are of COVID and the pandemic, while concurrently, being able to double down on the stuff that made the company grow and succeed and have all those successes that you talked about at the beginning of this conversation. So I made a lot of points there, I realize, but how do you make decisions now to decide what do we go back to, what do we not go back to, and how do we make this company continue to have the special ingredients that got us to where we are?
Yeah, I think first order principles are so important in framing any type of decision. And one of the first order principles that we continue to guide ourselves around is we've got a strong belief in the competence, capability, intelligence of our employee population. So while we continue to look at data around the world, and I agree with you, I actually think that we'll be adjusting and continuing to iterate on how to live with this virus for much longer than people predict. Even if we wind up with some type of vaccine, viruses mutate. There's going to be a constant readjustment. So how to live with the virus, I think, is a much more important set of conversations than how to kill or stop or extinguish the virus. I think that cat is likely out of the bag. When I look at things like case count, that's an interesting metric. Is that the right metric? Is the right metric? How do we ensure that hospitals are able to deal with caseload? How do we have a deep understanding of mortality and who to protect and how to effectively protect them? So constant data, I think, is going to be beyond, it has been critical and will be beyond critical in helping us live with this virus. But within the Splunk context, there are very different policies around the world. Australia has got a different situation than Japan does, which has a different situation than Germany, than Sweden, than Denmark, than France, than US, than Canada, than Mexico. And we've got people in all those different locations. So it is a difficult problem of making sure that we stay on top of the constantly shifting legislation, policy, the artifacts of data around the health and capability and safety within those different regions. And the grounding principle for us is let's make sure that we expose that information, that we adhere to local approaches and support local governments, but then expose that information to our employee population and trust our employees. We don't know what the situation is across 6,000 employees for every single one of them, and we shouldn't know. We can give them information. If I think about the foundations of data, there's 4 principles that we evangelize: transparency, openness, collaboration, and diversity of data. And if you take that approach with the employee population and make sure that they're informed and that they're able to make effective decisions, and you adhere to local policies, now I think for us, at least, we got a more winning combination. People that are informed and feel comfortable coming to an office, they should be able to go to the office. People that have that same information are not comfortable and have different situations, they should be able to work from home. And that extends to our partners, to our customers, because it is an ecosystem and it's not just Splunk employees we have to worry about. We got to think about the broader landscape. But I think having first order principles on data, having first order principles on culture and how you make decisions is always a good place to start to make sure that there's consistency for the people around you in how they should be reacting and how comfort in how you react and how they react and how the interaction actually works or doesn't work between the two.
Yeah, and I love that. And you sort of almost trickled into what I was going to ask you last, and we only have a couple minutes, so maybe I can just get you to provide a little extra context to this question. But you talked about the lasting impact that the pandemic is going to have on business. Stability is actually probably the next big step for driving the industry and enterprises forward. Growth is a great thing to think about, and some companies can think about that now, but stabilizing the environments, bringing the culture back, getting back to innovation in this sort of post-pandemic, it's not really post, this ongoing pandemic world, you got to balance. And I think it's 3 things. I think it's data, I think it's innovation, and I think it's culture. And so if I could just have you touch on this as one final question before I let you get back to your trip. How do you approach these 3 things and maybe balance them with both humanity and technology?
Yeah, I think the really interesting part for all of us is we're not going back. This whole concept of, and you can see it in the different political landscapes around the world, the way to go back to what we're comfortable with, from everything we can tell, time has one direction. So you got to figure out how do you move forward. And I think there's so many opportunities through this pandemic and through the continuation of this pandemic for new ways to make sure that you're able to gather data, new ways to make sure that you can continue to innovate and collaborate and have a strong network of people, and new ways to continue to build culture. This morning, we have been going through a whole series of exercises, first with executive staff, and now we're starting to open up across the company on where do we see the culture today and where do we see it going. And we had one of those, really cool, typical, hey, let's get together as an exec staff and review where we are and talk about our individual styles. And those are always in-person sessions. We had a really successful virtual session where we were very intimate. We reviewed our own personal styles. We reviewed the culture of the executive staff, how that was likely to reflect on the culture of the company. And that is a totally different way of looking at data, of thinking through innovation to continue to drive the company forward, and evaluating and enhancing and doubling down different parts of the culture. But it actually worked in a virtual scenario extremely well. So I think we will all keep inventing ways to move ourselves forward, our families, our communities, our countries, and our companies in the face of very different interaction patterns than we once relied on pre-February or pre-December if you're in China.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, Doug. It's the human in the loop of data and leadership. And I know that's an AI term, but I mean, this is a geeky event. I hope we have lots of tech lovers out there that enjoy that kind of terminology. But what I mean is it's really taking the best of empathy, empathic leadership. It's using all the data and it's applying it. It's applying it across your business. I do truly believe that the winners and losers will be defined by the companies that are able to employ data most successfully, utilizing the most useful data while concurrently never forgetting that behind all that data and every single number are people. And empathy is going to matter a lot in terms of driving the future. Doug Merritt, CEO of Splunk, I want to thank you one more time for joining me here at the 6.5 Summit.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me on, and look forward to future continued collaborations with you and the team.
Thanks, Doug.
Well, Daniel, that really was a great conversation. It's been incredible following Splunk and their journey to enable their customers to take advantage of the biggest data out there.
Yeah, AI, big data, ML, analytics, these are really important topics, and companies finding a way to extract as much value as possible from their data, it's an imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Daniel.
So that wraps up our first opening session of the 6.5 Summit, but really, Pat, it's just the beginning.
That's right, because tomorrow we're going to be bringing 30 videos live. We're going to have product sessions, we're going to have keynotes, and we're going to have spotlight sessions. And here's the thing, if you can't arrive as your calendar aligns, you can watch the videos whenever you want.
Yeah, so please join us tomorrow back here at the 6.5 Summit with so many thought leaders, so many great topics. We are sure there are going to be interesting segments that you are going to want to capture.
I can't wait to see you tomorrow. But with this, we've got to call it a day.
Bye now.